The Behemoth Brewing Company presents the Department of Conversation with Pat Brittenden. Behemoth, give me something hoppy.
And we are live with Oscar Kightley. Oscar Kightley, good morning and thanks for joining us today in the Department of Conversation.
Oh, good morning. Lovely to be here in this department.
Yeah, I see we're both rocking the caps. What are you, your Boston Red Sox there?
I mean, I can't say I'm a supporter. To me, I kind of appropriate these caps because New Zealand doesn't have New Era hats. So I kind of think B means brown.
Well, what's mine? I've got my LA cap on this morning. So
yeah, and well, see, I love cities and I like repping New Era hats. I wish New Zealand had them.
Yeah.
Well, rugby teams had them.
Yeah, well, they do, but they're kind of a bit naff, aren't they? I mean, like I follow several teams all over the world, and the kind of I've got a fat old head, 7 7/8, but I go for the skull caps and the fitted caps. But I typically go to Amazon or somewhere like that and just buy them off there.
How are you finding the delay with shipping thanks to COVID? Because I normally get my hats online, but I'm just worried about months. What are you finding?
It's not well. I haven't, to be honest with you. I haven't ordered hats for a while. I've probably got about 10 or 12 of them. I mean, I've actually. Hang on, I just moved my thing. They literally, it's quite funny because I have them in every room in the house. You know, that was just sitting on my desk over there. There's some on the wall over there. I work upstairs. So my studio's in my house. I work upstairs at the dining room table. There's like 2 sitting over there. There's 2 in my bedroom. Because I kind of feel wherever I go, I can just pick one up and put one on. Because I haven't got bad hair, but I don't do my hair very much. So someone knocks on my door and I go, oh shit, I better, this is more presentable than going out there with the terrible hair. Yeah. So they're all over my house.
I'm lucky because I've got no hair at the moment, and I probably won't have any until I die. But I find that's really good for hats.
Ah. Kind of gives it. I was going to say good suction, does it? Does it attach well?
It gives a real fitted styles. I'm 7 5/8, and I find without that pesky hair to kind of get in the way, I quite like it.
Yeah. The other place I've been before is they're no sponsor or anything. I think they're called Culture Kings, maybe with a Z on the end. They're based in Australia, but they've got a New Zealand outlet. What I typically do is I go in, like everyone does on the internet these days, I find it's something that I like and I go, oh shit, that's cool. I like, that was the Tampa Bay, or over there I can see the Arizona Diamondbacks or whatever. And then I do a bit of a Google. And a couple of times when I've been buying off Amazon, I have just like a guide to how to buy baseball caps. I've found that there's been like a clearance special at Culture Kings, and rather than paying $90 to bring them across from the States, I've paid $30 off Culture King. So that's what I kind of do. But I haven't, to answer your question about delays, I haven't really bought any caps in probably since COVID started, actually.
Oh, so Culture Kings send their hats from Aussie?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. Should we give them a free plug? We're kind of already doing that.
No, that's all right. I always struggle with buying these hats in shops because in America they're cheap, and in Australia and New Zealand, there's a store in High Street in Auckland that sells these for I think $110, which is just insane, because you can buy 3 of those for that much online, or if you were to walk into a Lids.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think we do that a little bit over here, unfortunately. There's the first is there's exchange, then there's the distance, then there's the exclusivity. Kind of brings me to one of the reasons we've got you on is the Dawn Raid documentary. When I come back to Auckland, I grew up in Hillsborough, which is like one suburb beside Mangere. Like Mangere, one side of the bridge, Hillsborough, the other side of the bridge. So I spent quite a lot of time down that neck of the woods, played a lot of basketball, and that's a lot of the places I went, down through Otara and Mangere sort of thing. But the Mangere shopping centre, there are a couple of pretty dope stores in there where actually I think I bought this top from it. I mean, I'm hard to fit. Not the smallest of guys in the world. So I love going shopping in places like Mangere, where my sizing seems to be on the middle of the rack rather than the far end. And they've got hats that fit, big fat heads like mine and stuff. So that kind of culture of, not culture as in my culture, but the culture of South Auckland, Mangere, Dawn Raid has been a part of my upbringing. And certainly the hip hop scene. The first album I ever bought was Licensed to Ill by the Beastie Boys. And from there on in, I've still got, and I talked about this a few times, I've still got NWA's original album that I bought at Sounds Queen Street
Wow.
as an American import, and I've still got the
Amazing.
album. Yeah. So whilst I look like a fucking a greying leprechaun out of Ireland with this ginger beard, it's like this story of hip hop and the story of hip hop in New Zealand and the story of Māngere in South Auckland is kind of a part of my upbringing, because it was where I hung out. It was where I spent a lot of time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I try and kind of tell people about the movie, is even if you've never been to South Auckland or don't like hip hop, even just as a New Zealander, this is part of our story, part of our history, part of our culture. And there's a South Auckland in every corner of the country, and I reckon even New Zealand could almost be the South Auckland of the world. Way at the bottom, more islanders than anyone else. I think our culture down here, we're pretty reserved people. We're not showy. And yeah, I think I think New Zealanders love stories about people from small neighborhoods that kind of punch above their weight. I think that seems to be part of our national psyche that we connect with. So I think people love stories like that here. It's the whole, who's that guy that was meant to have invented flying before?
Like on a farm in Manukau or something. Oh, geez, the name just jumps out of my head.
There's lots of stories. Richard Pierce.
Yeah.
So there's lots of stories like that. Of we're like the little country that could.
Yeah, totally. It's the number 8 wire and 4x2 mentality. Often people say, there's not many differences necessarily between Australia and New Zealand when you look from the outside in. But one thing people have identified is that the founding of this country, I guess in its modern context, obviously when Europeans turned up, was based on sort of frontiersmen and people looking for adventure. Whereas the founding of Australia in its European, arrival days was kind of based on, I don't want to say it was based on criminals, because, you stole a loaf of bread to feed your family and they freaking sent you to Sydney. But, was based on people not wanting to be there. Whereas people here was based on people coming for adventure. And that seems to follow through with sort of what you're talking about. It's like punching above our weight, 4x2 mentality. What do they say? Making a silk purse out of a sow's ear, or whatever the saying is.
Yeah, and I guess especially if you look at the settlers from Britain that came here, is it true that they were escaping a class war, right? And I think historically one of the appeals was the chance to come here and reinvent yourself anew and kind of carve a life for yourself. I just wish they hadn't oppressed the tangata whenua so hard when they came, so that they kind of came here looking for adventure and kind of put that adventure at the expense of the people that were living here at the time.
100%. I mean, it's it's hard to say, but compared to many countries, New Zealand seemed to do better, because it wasn't like turn up and just obliterate the quote unquote natives. But still, I wish we could have found this dream where, a new group of people could have been welcomed to a new country and lived alongside and lived with, rather than bring fucking hedgehogs to New Zealand because they wanted their backyards to look like their backyards in Suffolk.
I know. That frickin' acclimatization society, they've got a lot to answer for. I was in Invercargill a couple of years ago, and I was at the site where rabbits were released in New Zealand for the first time. And we all know how terribly that went after that. But apparently it was a big hoo-ha, and there was all the hoi polloi were there and all the elite, and there was only one dissenting voice, apparently the Scotsman. And I think his name was Jock, someone told me. But he was standing there going, this will end in tears. Yeah. I wouldn't do it. And he was right.
People often play that silly game, if you had a time machine, what would you do? Where would you go? And I've always said, I'd love to come back to exactly where I am now, but about 500 years ago. So you could experience this country without the mammalian, that's probably the wrong word, mammals being brought over and sort of decimating what was obviously a Garden of Eden bird life type place. It would be would have been fascinating to see. And we've got a pretty cool place here in Dunedin called Orokonui. It's a sanctuary, and they're all over the place, like Tiri Matangi. You know, they're trying to repopulate with native bird life and lizards and that, and it's cool. And I just hope those sanctuaries can go a bit wider. Then who knows? Maybe we'll get back what we've lost in the forthcoming hundreds of years. Hey,
yeah, I've heard of that place. I've never been there, but I love that places like that exist. And it's not just the birds that are regenerated, but it's everything else within the ecosystem. There's some pretty awesome worms in that place that you mentioned. Very rare worms, a velvet worm, I think. Someone was telling me one time.
I never really thought about that. Yeah. So what goes along with not just the birds, but the I mean, obviously there would have been the native things that the birds ate, including things like worms and stuff. They've got a really cool rockery down there as well, which is just all lizards. It's probably the size of it's not long and rectangular, but if you cut a bus in half and put it beside each other, it's kind of that sort of size. And you just walk around the outside of it, and on a sunny day, there's just hundreds of lizards just sitting on it, bathing in the sun. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool spot,
That's
actually.
Beautiful. Our lizards are so cool. We don't give our lizards enough love, man. We've got such a special population of lizards and moths. There's a whole lot of New Zealand stuff that doesn't get the love and recognition it needs and protection that it needs. We tend to, there's the rock star causes like kiwis, and that's great. But there's so much other diverse ecology that we have here.
And isn't it interesting that you get so jealous when you hear people like I've got a friend who's a tramper. And she was telling me the other day that, on a tramp that she did around the Chatham Islands, like all the way around the outside of, no, not the Chatham, sorry, Stewart Island, all the way around the outside of the Stewart Island, it was an evening time, they were on the track, and this Kiwi just came up to them, and she managed to catch it on her phone, comes up to them, sniffs around them, stomps on their feet a bit, there for 3 or 4 minutes, and then wanders off. And I just go, you lucky thing. Because it is something that's like it's taonga, it's our treasures and stuff, and we don't get to see them enough, especially in wild. And you hear these people who do this. I get that a little bit when I hear about the orcas in the Otago Harbour, because it's one of my things. I want to experience orcas, and I never have. And people experience these bits of nature that I haven't, or that many people haven't, and you hear it, and I think a certain kind of person goes, "Oh, you lucky bastard! How can I do that?" And I think part of it is because they are part of the country's treasures, especially a thing like the kiwi. I mean, seeing that in daylight, in the wild, just going out for a bit of a walk, well, it's more than that, but a proper tramp is a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So was that in Stewart Island, did you say?
Yeah, she did the full, apparently there's a walk which just around the outside, does the whole loop, and somewhere along the way did it.
We should all go to Rakiura anyway, Stewart Island, but especially for the Kiwis, I think that would be pretty cool.
It's on my to-do list. In fact, most Christmases, I've only been in Dunedin for 6 years or something. It's on my to-do list. I every Christmas I kind of go, oh, Christmas on Stewart Island. And I guess with every to-do list, you've got to just bite the bullet and do it. So it's quite expensive to get there. But then again, it's expensive the ferries and stuff across are quite expensive. And when you've got like 3 kids to take with you, it's sometimes it's kind of cheaper to go to Auckland or even maybe to get to Sydney than to get there. But you got to do it. Treasure's not cheap, is it? Sometimes you got to pay for it.
It's crazy, with the COVID reset, and there was a whole, because we lost all our tourists, and I think we had 3 million visitors a year up until it was suddenly cut off, and there was a big move towards New Zealanders seeing the country a bit more, and I think there was a really good goodwill on everyone's part to do that, but I reckon the cost is still proving prohibitive. Most New Zealanders have never been to Milford Sound.
My goodness. There's the beauty. There's a beautiful part of New Zealand.
Yeah, that's been on my bucket list since I was a child, since I first came to this country, since I first saw a picture of Milford Sound, and I just thought, that looks magical. But most Kiwis. So I reckon if you live in a part of the country that everyone wants to visit, you're very lucky. Like Stewart Island, like parts of Central Otago, like down south, like on the coast. Yeah.
I think as well, if you've got the confidence to negotiate, and I don't mean like a full businessman negotiate, but people are open to it at the moment. We went to, I think it's called Naseby. I think it was Naseby. I forget the name of that little town, but there's a little town that's about an hour and a half up to. It's kind of on the border of Otago and Canterbury, because I wanted to do a nighttime star viewing experience. And
wow, that'd be awesome.
They're 2,000 feet above sea level. That's how they sell themselves. I think it's Naseby. But the thing is, I basically contacted them and went, look, there's me and there's 4 kids and there's another adult, and we want to come up, and you guys are obviously struggling at the moment. We want to support your economy, but we don't have a huge amount of money. Can we meet somewhere in the middle? And they were like, fuck yeah, come on up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally. Of course. I mean, are they going to have an empty star trip that night, or are they going to? And I don't mean being a bastard and being too cheap. Like if it was normally going to be $300, I think we paid $200. It was that kind of thing. Make it a bit more affordable for us, but make them win as well. I think maybe if you're like a ferry operator and you're driven by, and you're not like an owner-operator, it's a bit more difficult. But a lot of the places, I've been to a couple of Airbnbs during this time and done the same sort of things. Just said, can you do 80 rather than 100? And they've been like, yep. And it's just, I think it works. And I think person to person, that kind of support through this is working. Bit more difficult person to corporation, like person to Air New Zealand or person to, the Hyatt Regency or whatever.
Yeah, I know. It's I love that still works. And the whole thing about, when you're looking for a hotel or rather, and you look online and you find those websites and, like booking.com. But then when you go and check in and they say, God, if you'd rung us directly, we would have given you a cheaper price, and they would have got a bigger chunk of it, because there's less of a commission. So nowadays I've started ringing hotels and instead of just looking at the cheapest like Trivago or whatever and saying, hi, what are you trying my luck that way? But that's really good. I will add that to my list. Naseby. So that's in central Otago, little town named after a village in England.
I should look it up because I better make sure that I'm giving you the right place as well.
It sounds like it, man. It's beautiful. Maniatoto, is that quite high up, is it?
It's certainly up that way. Oh, here we go. Let's do this. You'll be able to see this on your screen as well when I bring it up for the punters.
All right.
There's one called Naseby Night Sky Tours. So there you go, I've got it right.
Wow.
Naseby Night, an educated dark sky experience suitable for anyone 8+ years. A relaxed and informative evening with experienced amateur astronomer Paul Bishop. There you go, Paul. Shout out to Paul.
Paul.
So
you rang Paul?
Say again?
Did you ring Paul?
Yeah. And look, I think that they're open to, if you're like I say, if you don't have like a corporation or a boss to perhaps answer to. But I do the same thing as you. Like I went somewhere the other week and looked up Trivago, found a place that was $100 a night, and I know that Trivago takes like 25%. So rather than them getting 75%, you phone them up and you go $75. You phone them up and you go, look, I can book you through Trivago. You guys get $75 for it. How about I give you 85? I save a little bit, you get a bit more, everybody's happy. And they always go, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you?
Awesome. Yeah. Exactly.
I sound like I'm trying to rip people off now, but it's a win-win,
It's win-win, and it's kind of, it's not skipping technology, but it's using technology to kind of take it back to that classic time-old tradition, face-to-face interactions with another human.
Yeah. You've obviously been pretty busy for the last 12 months or so getting this documentary out, though. Have you had a chance alongside that to get around New Zealand and do any of these sort of, I actually, when COVID was happening, I did when we were in lockdown through that 5 weeks, I did about 50 podcasts during there because, of course, everyone was home. And we were saying during that time, let's, get Air New Zealand to go, can't go to France, go to Whakatane. So we were doing that all the way through, kind of pushing for that. And so then it came out, actively looking to get around New Zealand. Have you done or seen anything that you have always wanted to because of these restrictions?
No, not at all. No, I'm really lucky because my job gets me to corners of the country that I wouldn't even normally go to. So I've been busy with work, and also with COVID. Anxiety was a big thing for the first few weeks, because no one knew how bad it was going to be.
Totally.
No one knew whether the All Blacks would ever play again. This, no one would know whether just how bad were we entering a 2-year darkness period for the world. But once that dissipated, and it's just been work. But I did a series on Mark Twain about 3 years ago, and that was a really cool show because he actually came to New Zealand in 1895.
Mark Twain did. I didn't know that.
Mark Twain did,
Oh.
yeah. And so he did a speaking tour. So for the show, I got to follow his footsteps where he went, and thankfully that was through some really beautiful parts of the country. And kind of looking at what New Zealand was like back in 1895. Of course, we have no idea in the kind of country that Mark Twain was in. But it's always work and TV projects in particular that gets me to those small corners. And in my real world, I pretty much stuck at home. And I've got a kid. I've got a nearly 2 years old. And at that age, you don't want to be away from them too long, but you can't always take them everywhere.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. I got a chance to chat with Russell Howard the other week for an hour, which was lovely.
He's a lovely guy, isn't he?
Oh, he's lovely. And the thing that I was excited for him about was because of COVID, he's got to spend a good amount of time in New Zealand, not just the coming and going. And so often I used to do a radio show with Petra Baggist and have known her for quite a long time. In that TV world, it seems like, she's the time of your life. You'd go and you'd film, you'd go out. When you're doing that kind of thing, though, around New Zealand, like following Mark, do you get enough time to kind of get a sense, to kind of get your feet on the ground and kind of go, this is Twizel or whatever it is?
You don't get enough time, but I'll tell you, one day's better than no day. And a day in Twizel is better than having never visited. So you don't get a sense of the place. You don't even get to scratch the surface. All the locals are looking at you like, oh yeah, you're passing through. But it's just to touch it, just to hang out in Wamaru for a day and look at their historic water trail and
their steampunk.
And their steampunk, which is so funny.
That's cool, eh? What a random thing, eh? This little town, and it's just got this massive steampunk theme to it.
With these big wide streets like it was in Russia.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So no, but yeah, I was happy for Russell. Did you know that in the UK they're introducing a hotel quarantine system from Monday?
Yeah.
It's now what are we in February 21, and they're only just making people having a hotel scheme. It's like, what the hell? Until now they've been making people isolate for 10 days in their homes, which of course they're catching the train, they're catching public transport to get to their homes. So, man, Russell must have been so happy to be in New Zealand and to have escaped the UK.
I got a chance to see him as well when he came to Dunedin. So I talked to him when he was in isolation, and then saw his show last week. And yeah, you can hear it. You can hear the vibe of, you guys live in paradise. You're so lucky. And to be honest, you guys have worked so well with Jacinda to give yourselves these breaks.
Sorry, I've just got to move a dog.
That's all right. What kind of dog have you got?
Very cute. I don't know what she is. I think she's part. Oh, get up. Oh, sorry. Bear with me.
You're right, bro. I only asked because I got a puppy like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so part of my life at the moment is based around sleepless nights still a little bit, and getting up early to allow a 10-week-old puppy to get out the door to do toilet in the morning.
Well, that's great. You're training them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun puppies.
Here, I'll show you. Check this out. You look at your screen. Have a look. This is us.
Okay. Oh, what is that beautiful dog?
Yep, that's the border collie. Her name is Nala, and that's us playing tricks with her out in the backyard. She is mad and mental. Yeah, and she thinks she's big and tough because she can chew and bite squeaky toys.
So what were they? Were they sheepdogs, border collies?
Yeah, funnily enough, I had a border collie when I was growing up, when I was a kid, so I was quite keen to get one again. And because my kids are kind of, by the end of this year, they'll basically be, I think, 17, 15, 13. So I wasn't going to get a dog that was like the kids' dog, because I mean, one of them could be gone next year, one of them in 3 years' time. So I had to get something that I wanted, basically. And I was always keen for another border collie. But I never knew this. They're from the border of, I think it's England and Scotland. That was where they were kind of originated, and that's why they're called border collies. And yeah, they're sheepdogs. They've got a gap between their shoulder blades, and it allows them to get really low to the ground, so their shoulders can do things that other dogs can't. So that's why when you see them herding sheep, they almost like run like cats, really low to the ground. So yeah, that's Nala. She's been with us for 3 weeks, and lots and lots of fun with 10% of, oh my God. I'm like at the moment doing podcasts, I've got someone puppy sitting because I have to at the moment, or else there'd be a screaming dog upstairs at the moment going, "Where's my dad?" It's all right.
Yeah, I love how dogs so live in the moment. So beautiful.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought we were talking about. Oh, I wanted to ask you. You're born Samoa. That's right. Born Samoa.
Yes.
Came to New Zealand, but because what I was going to say is, the way you're speaking, you seem to have quite a deep love, a passion for New Zealand, and I'm wondering, from being born in Samoa and coming here, where does that come from?
It's just, I don't know how you can live here and not have a love for this place. And it's not about, because for immigrants from the islands, there's a narrative of that we leave there for a better life, which I don't like, because I don't think it is a better life. And if you've ever been to the islands, you'll understand what I mean.
Totally.
It's a harder life. So this isn't about me being grateful for the opportunities that I wouldn't have got in Samoa. It's a very different life. But I don't know. I just, I feel like I kind of won the lottery a little bit. One, I was born in Samoa. And then two, got to come here to grow up. And I feel like, Fred Dagg's song, "We Don't Know How Lucky We Are," which is actually brilliant on so many levels. I believe that, I think, and especially now with COVID.
Totally. Although I do wonder at the moment, like my old man, as his generation typically is certainly more of a national voter than a Labour voter. And when you hear people like him and of his ilk going, Jacinda's done quite well, maybe just for this one, more of us do realise how lucky we are in this particular instance.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even people that don't like Jacinda or don't like or aren't Labour supporters, or even people who thought that the lockdown was a big load of shit, even those people stood by the social contract that we have here.
Yep.
That even if you think it's complete shit, even if you can't stand how the message is being delivered, you will comply, because at the end of the day, we do love our neighbours and we do look out for each other. And I think that was a really cool thing about New Zealand. And I think you saw that reflected in the election result. I think people underestimated how much people loved being healthy and free to go to the movie. I mean, we're so lucky to even have a movie out. We're lucky that we have cinemas to go to. That being said, I think cinemas could do with a bit of help. Just letting people know that just because there's no blockbusters, there's so many good movies to watch. And now is actually good, because there's, apart from Wonder Woman, there's Eric Bana's new film, The Dry, which looks really good. There's an amazing film called Promising Young Woman that I've heard so much about that I haven't seen, that I want to go and see. But, we're so, especially in COVID, like, this is insane. And, you would have known from talking to Russell, and we've got festivals, life is normal. It's crazy. And I think, and it's more than, I've never been more like, I was talking to an American guy last week that had arrived in the country just before COVID, and I was like, "Welcome to the lifeboat." And he went, "Yeah, he really feels like it." But he's posting, and all his people back home are like, "What the hell are you doing? Like he's feeling bad." I feel like a lot of New Zealanders almost feel bad about our normal sharing day-to-day stuff, because in the context of what's happening in the world, it can seem smug. We're not being smug. We're just doing all the things that we love and that we're fortunate to still enjoy.
I had a podcast a couple of weeks ago with a couple of YouTubers who have just moved to New Zealand. He's got a New Zealand father, so he had the right to come here, and his wife Carrie.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, Alex the Vagabond and Carrie Rad are their names. And I saw a video of theirs the other day where it was his like first couple of days out of isolation, and he was in a mall, and he's just come from Los Angeles, and he was like, I mean, he didn't say it like this, but he was like, "This is fucking weird," because there's all these people in this mall with no masks on. And it's a similar thing. You talk about Russell Howard. I know he's still got shows going on, but not to give away his set or try to tell someone's joke. But he basically says, for all those people who were like, lockdown, fucking waste of time, he goes, click, and he turns on BBC. He goes, "Do you want that?" And if people still complain, he goes, click, and he turns on Fox News. "Do you want that?" And that would bring the most of New Zealand back into line for you. Okay, we can still go to the cricket. Black Caps are playing in Dunedin in a few weeks' time. I'm going to be there. I was watching the Super Bowl. Can't do that in other parts of the world like we can here.
Yeah, I know you can't go to a pub and just watch it. Speaking of the Black Caps, I grew up, I was a schoolboy in the 80s, so during that glorious era for New Zealand cricket, I became a fan. And I'm a little bit sad about it being on Spark. I know that, it's good for the game and it's pumps money, but I don't know. I feel like there's a whole lot of eyeballs in homes that don't have cable TV or that don't have access to that. And casual cricket fans, people that become cricket fans by osmosis because it's all around and it's, as opposed to their parents got them into cricket. I was one of those casual cricket fans that grew up just watching cricket and gradually came to love it. So I guess I'll just have to go to the games. But I don't know. Because cricket's takes so long. There's something nice about having it on the TV and in your house. So good on you for going to the game. And I am sad a bit about that. New Zealand, that the domestic game isn't on. That you need to buy a subscription to a telco to get.
Yeah, I guess you used to have to buy it to be on Sky Sport anyway, but I hear what you're saying, because now at the moment I think the rugby's on one and the cricket's on another, which are two of New Zealand's biggest sports, which means most families who can afford something will probably pick one over the other, which is a shame. I remember having this conversation when I used to talk back, and people would complain about paying for the rugby on Sky, but I'd say to them, before kind of the mid-70s, the only way you'd see an All Black game is to pay for a ticket at the gate. And then we got served up free sport for such a long time, from the mid-70s through the early 90s perhaps. And now it's just kind of gone back. I wonder if this is a big conversation to be had then. I'd still like to see kind of TVNZ or TVNZ1 go back to a BBC format where there's no ads. And maybe there is even a, what do you call it, when they charge people a broadcasting fee. And if we did enough of that kind of stuff, we could be investing in things like putting the rugby and the cricket and, various arts and various cultural New Zealand things like TVNZ7 used to carry back on a genuine public broadcaster. Could be a way to do it. Fund it that way. I'd chuck in, $50 a year broadcasting fee to get free rugby and cricket. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, I wonder whether that would even cover it, given how expensive that shit is now. I mean, there's that deal now with those financial investors in America making a bid to own 15% of New Zealand rugby, which will inject 400 million plus into the game. But that feels quite cheap, for something. I don't know.
But even that, being bought by someone, that's $100 a person in New Zealand.
Yeah,
that's quite a lot of money. Hey, I know we haven't got you for a long amount of time, but No,
it's all good. This is fun.
I was going to ask you as well about, you mentioned Wonder Woman, and as a an actor and a director, you may not want to get into the nuts and bolts of the quality of another person's product, but child of the 80s as well. Did you get through it? I to be honest, I'll be honest with you. I really struggled. I felt like it's DC maybe trying to mimic a little what Taika did with that kind of silliness within a superhero movie, missing the mark and turning the 80s into kind of a gauche representation of itself that people from the 80s don't look at and remember and see at all. I guess what I'm saying is I didn't enjoy it at all. What about?
No, I'm interested to hear your take. I haven't seen it.
Okay. Sorry.
I saw the first one and I was like, wow, that's cool. But it didn't make me want to kind of watch. It didn't sink me into the franchise. So I haven't seen it, and it's a bit weird. But I think you're a smart guy, and your appraisal of that is interesting to me. And
well, let me just also add, I'm in love with the first one. Like, I've watched it 3 times. I think the first one is amazing. I think it's a great piece of cinema. I think what they did with her as a character was amazing.
What do you think of that? Because they've got that guy as a sidekick, in 1984. Does that work? The guy that played Captain Kirk. What's his name?
I can't remember.
Anyway, yeah, that guy.
I just think, I honestly, and I know it sounds a bit arrogant to make it sound like I feel like I know what they were trying to do, but it gave me the appearance of them trying to hit that balance that no one like Taika has found in Ragnarok, where they cross over the action and the comedy. It feels like they were trying to do that. So I can't say emulating him, but just trying to get that comedy action crossover, and it feels like they fucked up both. It feels like that it wasn't really all that funny. It was more kind of cringy than funny. And compared to that first one where she was basically, battling a whole army herself, the action felt a little bit staged and not even staged, but lacking. Put it that way, lacking.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I guess, that's interesting.
But look, what I was going to ask you about that is, I think Marvel, or is it Disney, have said for 2021, maybe it's both of them, all of their big pictures are going to be streamed.
As well as cinema?
Yeah, all of them. Everything coming out from this year from some of those big companies is going to be streamed.
Simultaneously?
Yeah. Same day.
Wow.
And I'm wondering, was there any conversation, because I haven't seen Dawn Raid. I'd love to see it. Like I said to you before we started,
You'll love it, bro. That's it. You'll love it.
I don't know them, but I can remember being at the Māngere markets, the Otara markets, and various events where their stalls were set up selling the T-shirts, which is kind of how they started. So I remember them being in the community. But was there any conversation about we should stream this? We should put this in the cinemas. How did you guys come to the conclusion of cinemas were the best?
It was always the hope, of course, to be that it would be a cinema release. That was always the plan. COVID meant that, to be honest, the conversation was more worried, like, oh shit, I hope we can get a release for this, rather than a strategic one about what platform to put it on.
Right.
So yeah, I'm just, because you make I really feel for Nikki Caro, one of our great filmmakers. She directed Mulan. And that was shot in New Zealand, epic, beautifully shot film on all our beautiful scenery. And Disney had to launch it straight to the platform. So we were robbed from seeing it on the big screen. And I'm still a fan of that cinema experience. I still think there are no experiences like it. Sitting in a dark theater with a whole bunch of strangers all facing the same way and being in the same space. I totally get that they're going to have to be a bit more flexible with that company that you're mentioning. Was it Disney or Warner?
I'm just looking at it now. This is the headline that I'm reading. I'll piss off. I guess I've got an ad blocker and I'm not going to subscribe. It says Marvel movies on Disney Plus, all Marvel content to stream in 2021. So that includes The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, includes Loki, and includes Ms. Marvel as well. So they're all going to stream. But I think, I'm not going to open it up because it's asking me to get rid of my ad blocker. I'm not going to do that. I'm pretty sure release in the cinema the same days where it can be. Because I'm with you. I mean, like 2 out of the kind of top 10 favourite films I've ever seen were at the Rialto in Newmarket, and I went and saw them because of actors that were in them and knew nothing about them. They just happened to be Green Mile was one of them.
Wow.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape was the other one, and Shawshank Redemption. So I saw those 3 movies at the cinemas, and I really only went and saw them because, you know, I like Tom Hanks, you know, I like Morgan Freeman, and I like Johnny Depp. And that was really why I went and saw them. And so I like the experience of the cinema. But I have to tell you, at the moment as well, I've got a 65-inch screen upstairs. And there's something quite nice about being able to fit it in with my timetable more. You know, it can still be an event when there's people around. We can have dinner in front of it. And I can see benefits for both. If I can have both, which it looks like with Marvel and Disney will be able to do this year, I like to have the choice. Maybe some of them I'll go to the big screen. Like if Avengers... what was the last one? Was the Endgame? Came out again. That's a big screen must see, right? Maybe for, I don't know, maybe for something that's a bit more narrative driven, yeah, the TV at home is going to be pretty good.
Yeah, but even if like you look at those films, Green Mile that you just mentioned, Green Mile, Shawshank,
Gilbert Grape.
And Gilbert Grape especially, you know, they're very talky.
Yeah.
You know, they're not action, and yet it still works on the 50-foot screen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah, you're right.
There was a thought that if it's whiz-bangy action, you know, big screen, but there's no room. But if you look at the old films that people used to watch, it was just 2-handers in a room. You know, and as wonderful as 65, and I totally buy that, and I'm jealous, and I want to come over and watch it.
Next time you're in Otara, come by, swing by.
It doesn't compare to 50-foot, man. It's like, I don't care how big your screen is, even if it takes up your whole lounge wall, it's not the same as this big 50-foot. And you know what? To me, I reckon in terms of a lot of filmmakers, well, that was for me anyway, was because I used to love going to the movies, but I used to stay for the credits right till the end as a kid. And I think that was one of the things that kind of first got me, was like, wow, look at the credits, look at all those names. Wow, it'd be awesome to have I'd love to see my name up there. And it's because it's on a big 50-foot damn screen. And I don't know if having it on if it was all streaming would have the same magic power.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm gonna play a little bit of the Dawn Raid promo in the background here while you're telling me the answer to this question. So
but about Universal, yeah, I love that spinning globe. Anyway,
when you're directing, so you've made Dawn Raid, and people who are watching, they can see it in the image next to you, the promo to it. When you're directing it, do you think differently? Do you kind of go, how is this going to look on a 50-inch a 50-foot versus how this going to look on a, let's say, 50-inch? Does it make a difference?
Well, because with this, it was a doco, and there was a lot of archive stuff, and our 2 main kind of storytellers are kind of shot in a room, like there's Brotha D and there's Andy. They're the kind of 2 main storytellers, and you do think a bit differently, because you're like, you know, like if you talk to any DOPs, you know, the thing they always get is depth. They want to get is depth. And that does, you know, as a film fan growing up, you just know that even if it's a doco, which lends itself to more kind of static storytelling, I was just excited. I don't know if I used to teach about it. I was just excited about making a film, and the fact that it would be in the cinema, because this was the first time I got to direct. So I was just excited as anything about just it coming out and people seeing it, and also getting to tell these guys' story, because it's amazing. I mean, you grew up in Hborough, and you know you were near it. Of course, you couldn't be in Auckland without being part of it. But that's the thing. Like I've this funny thing. I got a call from a 78-year-old Pākehā woman last week. It's hilarious. She was trying to text me, but she accidentally rang me. It's hilarious. So we ended up having a chat. But she was telling me how much she doesn't even like hip hop, and she loved the film. And I think, it's like, fuck, this really happened in our country. Was out, you know, and it's not just the hip hop music, but it was all the stuff around that and the context and the things that were going on in that time, the way the landscape shifted for music so much. From in '99 they still had cassettes releases.
Right.
By
Wow.
2008, CDs were gone. Streaming, people weren't paying for music in movies. That was the beginning of it. Social media was kicking off. In a way, they kind of occupied the last time you could have that kind of record company. You know what I mean? I think now the landscape's so different.
And from the Dawn Raid stable, is anyone still doing particularly well, even like financially? Because obviously Savage blew up, especially with Knocked Up and music that he got offered to America. Is anyone still sort of, and I'm not saying not continuing to create art, because I'm sure they're all still doing music on some level.
They all are.
But are any of them doing really well and are set up well, or is it all just kind of, as happens with New Zealand artists, kind of they blow up massively a la Stereogram or something, and then they just kind of go away and have to go get real normal jobs?
I don't know. I mean, Aradna's still making music. At Ease are running a performing arts academy and putting all their gifts and music into the next generation, and they're amazing. I was talking to Savage. He signed to Ministry of Sound. And so I'll tell you a cool story about Savage is that there was a time when he was at a gig and he noticed that, I think it was an EDM gig, and he noticed that no one gave a fuck about the rapper and it was all about the DJ.
Right.
And so he decided then, it was like, shit, I need to learn this stuff. So he asked his mate or someone to teach him DJing for a year and kind of reinvented himself as an EDM DJ. He went to Ministry of Sound and said, I want to come over. And they were like, oh, you're a hip hop guy. And he says, give me 2 beats. Give me 2 beats and I'll see what I can do with them. And you have a listen. And if you like it, you can sign me. And one of those beats was Timmy Trumpets.
Timmy Trumpets, an amazing song, eh?
Yeah. So of course they heard what Savage did, how he treated it, went, oh, boom.
It's nice sometimes. It's nice sometimes seeing artists I like seeing Shay Fu DJ as well. When you expect to see him in a certain area, but then you see him in a different area, you see him on the wheels. It's always a cool thing as well.
Yeah, it is good because it's whether you rap or do music, it's the love of it, that gets you. It's playing records for the first time, or it's cassettes, whether it's your siblings or your parents. But just that first time that a song really hits, and it could be weird. But the first kind of time that music really gets into your brain, and that powers you off into whatever it is. But it's like Bob Marley said, right? One good thing about music, when it hits you, you feel all right.
It's an amazing. I'm so looking forward to seeing it. And actually, I was just thinking about the cinema. I don't think I haven't been to the cinema since pre-lockdown. So that's approaching a year. This is deep. And your kids are 17, 15, and 13. Did you say? Yeah, they will be by the end of the year. Yeah.
They will love it. This is a film that you can take them to. Now, I know I'm doing a big sell here, but seriously, for the youngsters, it's a bit of a history lesson. Even for the young people of the artists themselves, Savage's kids are starting to watch videos of him on YouTube going, oh, wow, are you famous, Dad? So even their own people don't realize the full extent of what went down. And, I reckon even your kids will like it. I'd love to hear from you if you do take one of them and see what they think.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go, and we'll definitely come back to you on that. Before we let you go, we got to stop and ask about Brotown, because obviously that's an iconic New Zealand piece of television history. I still hear people. There's a suburb in Dunedin called Mornington. I still hear Mornington for life all over the place because it's become part of our vernacular.
I love it.
So, I mean, I don't want to say something cheesy. I don't like doing kind of interviews like, oh, so when's it going to come back? Will we see another season? But it is a pretty amazing thing for a bunch of Kiwi guys to put together and make, compared to never seeing anything really like that before in New Zealand. I don't know. Tell me about Brotown. Is it a done deal? Is it done and dusted? I've still got the DVDs on my shelf. They come out every now and again.
Have you? 1 to 5. Have you got all 5 series? Oh, you're amazing. I don't think it's done and dusted. Also, it wasn't. I mean, it was the Naked Samoans were behind it, but it was conceived by my friend Elizabeth, a Pākehā woman, and she built an amazing studio with animators and all sorts from India and China. So we look good as behind Brotown, but it wasn't a bunch of Kiwi guys. But in answer to your question, it is my fervent hope that it's not done and dusted.
Big screen, 50-foot screen?
So that would be amazing one day. We actually started about 10 years ago. We started writing a film script for Brotown, and we did about 20 drafts over like 2 years. Elizabeth and all the other boys who were writing it. And I went to this script comedy guru guy, this guy from LA, who was running workshops. The Film Commission every now and then brings experts from overseas to come over here and school local filmmakers. And I asked him, I said, how do you take a local film and make it, global? And he said, you make it as specific as possible to the local culture.
All right.
And I went home and I looked at our script, and in our script, we've got the boys going to LA to live with their auntie in Compton.
That's hilarious.
And we thought, that's what we thought. But we thought, you know what? You can't do a Brotown movie and then in the third scene, they fly to LA, because the people that grew up with Brotown, the New Zealanders that love the show, want to see Morningside, want to see Aotearoa animated. And so I went home and said to Elizabeth, I said, Elizabeth, we've got to start again. We just have to. So we threw the script out.
Dude.
We kind of just cut that off and just went, all right, well, let's try another one. And Elizabeth has been writing for years. Anyway, so and that's why I say it's our fervent hope that it hasn't gone.
So what about going the other way, rather than going from Auckland to the biggest smoke, doing it the other way, going from Auckland to, East Cape, and sending the city boys into the country? Could be the kind of same way to do something opposite.
I think we're more likely to go that way if we do something, like one of the episodes of that people love from the first series was when we'd go to Kia Ora Bay, where Jeff's people are from, with the kind of tiny East Coast looking settlement. So we'd definitely look to do more stuff like that. One episode we even went to Wellington, which was hilarious. We got to talk about all the white people with dreads. But yeah, I think, hopefully it's back, and watch the space is all I can say, brother.
It is interesting to think about the phrases from there. I still say, like, if I'm going, not to bring the tone down, but going to the bathroom or something, I'll still often say, I might be sometime. There's the things that come from that they get stuck in your head and you don't know where they're from. And what I find with my kids is I'll say something which is a line from a movie or a line from a TV show or from a song. Like, my kids constantly say, hey dad, this one time, and I always say at band camp, and they don't know why I say it, and I keep telling them one day you'll see the movie and you'll go, and that happens a lot. Your kids, they go, oh dad, you say that. Yeah, that's where it's from.
By the same token, and you say there's a reference and reference to someone else's reference, and they get it, and they say the rest back to you. It's like beautiful. It's absolute magic when you have those moments.
And lastly, only because I just want to acknowledge it. I know it's several years ago and it's gone, but I was thinking, as you were saying, getting your name up on the big screen, man, because you've been there and done that. I mean, Sione's Wedding is still a masterpiece, a great movie, a great laugh, and yeah, I like the idea of you being up on that big 50-foot, just because the stuff you seem to be involved with is quality, is enjoyable, and I want to see it. So I think you should aim to keep getting up on that 50-foot screen as much as you can, because it'll be good shit if you do.
Cheers, brother. I'm going to. I will. Thank you, my man. Appreciate that.
Hey, Oscar, you've done the big hard sell for Dawn Raid. How much longer is it in the cinemas for? Just like if people are listening or watching at the moment, obviously we're the middle of February when people are listening to this. So how long are we going to be able to see it in the cinemas for?
It's the thing. So it was in cinemas January 21. We're in the middle of Feb now. I'm not sure how much long. I mean, it stays up there as long as people are going to see it. And initially, I thought it was good that there were no blockbusters because I thought, but actually, what the blockbusters used to do was bring people to the cinema.
Yeah.
And then when they were there to see a Marvel film or whatever, they would go, "Oh, there's that other film on," and so people aren't in the space to see what's on. So I hope they give it a decent run because I think everyone who goes to see it loves it. It's just getting people in front of it. It's getting that word of mouth. So I don't know. It may not be there probably until the end of the. I don't know about these things. I mean, because the thing about movies, it's the cinema owner takes 70% of the box office.
Wow.
So it's in their interest to get films that people will come in because, of course, they make all their money with popcorn and bloody $20 ice cream. That's why so many cinema houses take those big ones because they need bums on seats.
Yep.
So it's up to them, really. It's up to the exhibitors in terms of how long they're going to give something a go. If they like it and they're confident that the word of mouth will get around, I hope that it'll last at least till the end of the month, but who knows, man. So
and
see it while you can.
Do you have conversations now or previously about once it's out of the cinemas, what happens next? Or do you have those conversations when it's getting to the end of the cinema run?
No, pretty much that's the distributors take over from there.
All right.
And they decide what digital platform it's going to go on, if any. The distributors are universal. You saw the spinning globe.
Yeah.
Just that was exciting to me because I saw so many movies as a kid, like, wow, the spinning globe and that piece of brass music, and even the lion from Metro Golden Mare roaring. That was always an exciting moment to me. It was always those little weird bits. So who knows, brother? Hopefully it lasts a little bit longer.
Hey, well, dude, thanks so much for jumping in and having a chat today. I look forward the next time you're down here in Otapoti that you swing by and watch something on the 65-inch. The thing about the 65-inch, there's two things about it, is that my old man was down for a week or so, while the cricket was on, and he's got, actually, talking about going to Spark Sport, he doesn't have a smart TV. He's got so he doesn't watch, he watches it on an iPad. This is a man who's followed cricket for 70, 75 years of his life. So he was down here, I had the chair set up, the legs up, he was about 6 feet back from the 65-inch, just in heaven. And then I say to my kids, oh, maybe we should look at getting an 80-inch. And they go, how big is that, Dad? And I go over and I add another 15 inches to the corner of the 65-inch, and it basically takes up the whole wall. And they don't say, fuck me, but it's the kid version of that, of what it is. Of course, I'm not going to buy an 80-inch because they're ridiculously expensive. But so there's the two things about that. But I was going to say, next time you're in town, and look, what we love to do here in the Department of Conversation is we talk always and talk often. So come back, don't be a stranger. Anytime you want to catch up about whatever, whether it's catching up with Kiwi on Stewart Island or telling us about your next project, Oscar Kightley, when I grow up I want to be just like you. We would always love to have you in town.
Awesome, brother. Thanks for having me in the DOC. And I would love to come back and give us a yell after you watch the film. Let me know what you think. And, bro, that would be cool to come in again and have another chat with you.
Absolutely. All right, dude.
Cheers, brother.